Everybody, it's Jodie here from Decoris Vintage Designs, here with you today for another furniture painting tutorial. Inspired by the hand-built city Valletta in Malta, I will be showing you how to get this very romantic oldie-worldy look. Alright, so what you might not have realised about this piece is that it's a redo of an older piece that just wasn't selling, and I just thought, you know what, I really love the WoodUBends that I have on there, so I am just going to go with this and give it a different look. If you want to see how I created the original look on this piece, especially the WoodUBends, I will link that video below. Also, you can grab all your products today via the links in the description below as well. Okay, alright, so what I started with today is actually the silk paint line from Dixie Belle rather than chalk paint. You can use chalk paint for this look if you want to. I was just, for some reason, my mood took me and I just wanted to try out some silk. So I am using the colour Saltwater, which is probably a medium white in terms of the silk paint range. I have my mini brush, and I am just very, very gently stippling that on. Silk paint can actually create some nice texture. So silk paint usually lends itself to very classic, clean one paint finishes. However, what I like about silk paint sometimes is that you can stipple and it gives the impression of texture, but actually it looks textured, but it dries very, very thin, if that makes sense. So it looks very textured, but it isn't. And also it has a built-in primer and a built-in top coat, so it just makes it very, very easy, a very easy paint to use. So I am using the mini brush today, which is synthetic, instead of my usual natural bristle chip brushes. The reason being is that I just want to give it, as I said before, a very soft textured look. That being said, it is an old mini brush that I don't particularly care about so much anymore. It's a little bit haggard. So, you know, even though I'm doing this very gently, it can still end up looking a little bit rough. So yeah, just make sure you don't use a brush that you care about. So once the first layer of salt water is dried, I am just going in there with a second layer, and I am stippling my brush in different directions to get different textures. It is advisable to wait 2 hours before you go in there with a second coat. However, I was working outside today and it dried in no time, and what I love about silk as well is that when it dries, it becomes absolutely scratch proof. Okay, so next up I have Hampton Olive from the silk line, and I also am pouring some water into a cup. It's also important when you do this that you pull some daft faces like I am here, all ready for TikTok. No, I'm just joking. Okay, so the advice normally is with silk is not to mix more than 20% water with 80% paint. However, because that can change the properties of the silk. However, I am just using this as a wash now, as you can see, and I am dabbing with my kitchen towel. So I'm not concerned with needing all of the top coat properties and things like that in with the silk right now, because I am just using it as a wash. But I just wanted to let you know that what you shouldn't do with silk is use water as you're painting it, especially if you just want a really, really nice, sheer, sleek finish, because that can then affect the way it dries and the top coat and etc, etc. So I don't want to confuse you if that's what you've heard. However, it is just because I am using it as a wash. So this wash is going to add age to my piece. What I love about Hampton Olive is that it has a brown tone to it and also some green tones as well for that very classic look. And I am just working in sections. It doesn't really matter what brush you use for this at all. I think I'm using the small flat so I can get into all the nooks and crannies of the WoodUBend. And then once I've painted a little piece on there, I'm grabbing some kitchen towel. You can grab a rag as well if that's what you've got to hand, and I am just tapping away. And what this will do is it will just help build up that texture to get that oldie worldy finish. Okay, so what I have here is the blue ornate glass decoupage paper by Dixie Belle. I am absolutely loving these decoupage papers right now. There are so many designs and I just can't get enough of them. I think they're really great papers to add something special to your piece. So I am applying this with a clear coat by Dixie Belle, and it's the flat that I'm using because there won't be any gloss or satin with it. It will just dry very matte. And I'm just basically, at the moment, I'm using that just to glue it down. Obviously, it's not fitting into the WoodUBends perfectly right now, but don't worry about that because it's going to look very rustic anyway, and I'm going to fix it. Okay, so the way I'm doing this is basically I'm just using my brush just to keep the paper flat down, and then I'm using some 180 grit sandpaper, and then I'm just very gently sanding around those edges so that it tears the decoupage paper off. I'm not worried about being neat today because, as per usual, it usually being untidy fits in with my style, but if you did want to be neat, then make sure that you use an iron, and that will iron out all the crinkles. I personally love crinkles, but if you don't, then you can iron those out as well for a smoother finish. Alright, and so to fill in the little gaps there that I've missed, I've just basically ripped a bit of the paper off and I am just going to pat my clear coat on there and make sure it's nice and glued. You can see some edges there, which I am going to hide, so I will, once this top coat is dried, I will sand back those edges, as you can see here now, so I won't get any harsh lines and it will just look like it has started to fade away over time. Okay, now that I've sanded it, I am coming back in with my Hampton Olive wash. These papers are amazing. They're so versatile in the sense that they're very strong. They handle a lot of moisture, but at the same time they're very easy to sand back. I just love them. So yes, the decoupage paper will handle the wash. Also remember the clear coat is dried at this point and we'll be adding extra protection to it as well. So by applying the clear wash over here and using the technique ragging again, which is where you dab your rag or your kitchen roll, then this means that it will add to the overall look of this again and age the piece. Alright, so this is dried again. As I say, I did all this in one day because everything's drying so quickly because I'm outside. I now have some amber gemstone mousse, which I have mixed with some top coat, and with an artist brush I am gently applying this over the WoodUBend. I'm going to not cover the WoodUBend in its entirety because I want it to look like the copper has started to speckle off over time. Again, just adding more texture and more effects to this to get that faux aged finish. So I love the Gemstone Mousses. They are a water-based product, whereas the gilding waxes are very thick and oil-based. These are water-based, and also they're a little bit thicker than the Moonshine Metallics. Actually, they're a lot thicker than Moonshine Metallics. And by adding clear coat to this, it also then has a built-in sealer and becomes more of a thick metallic paint. They are definitely a mousse-like texture, and hence the reason why they're called gemstone mousse. And also so you can add water to these if you want a more diluted drippy look. You can also leave them out overnight to dry out if you want a thicker texture, or as I said, you can apply clear coat to them and mix that in, and then you will have a built-in sealer as well. At this point I felt like the blue wasn't blending in so well. Even though it was very aged at this point by the sanding and the wash, I thought maybe the blue just needed warming up a little bit. So I got a very fine artist brush, and using my gemstone mousse again, I literally just patted some of the gemstone mousse into some of the patterns. I'm not doing it very evenly. As you can see, I am not covering the whole pattern up. With the flower there, you can see there's just a few little dots of the gemstone mousse on there. Again, what I'm thinking here is that maybe parts of this were gilded at some point and have started to speckle off. So, you know, you can get away with making this look very rustic and speckled. Also, you know, I think by adding some copper into this, it is called amber, but to me it is a coppery colour. By adding a little bit of a coppery colour to this, it is just going to warm the whole thing up, and it's going to look like it forms part of the piece rather than like it's just been stuck on there. You know, we want this to look authentic. We don't want it to look like it's just been painted. If you've used WoodUBends before, I don't know if you know that they can be distressed. So again, at this point I thought, okay, maybe I've actually gone in a little bit heavy-handed with the amber mousse here. So what I decided then was just to get some sanding paper, and I basically just distressed those WoodUBends down a little bit, just to create a more authentic rustic look. Okay, so what I have here now is Easy Peasy wax, and I also have the Dixie Dirt in charcoal. So I absolutely love the Dixie Dirts as well, and sometimes prefer them over the dark waxes. What I'm trying to do here is add a little bit more age to this, so I'm almost creating a bit of a vignette around the edges to try and soften this up and make it look even more worn. When you use the Dixie Dirts, it's advised to use some kind of wax with them. My preference is Easy Peasy wax, and I just spray the Easy Peasy wax on, and I mix with an artist brush. I mix the dirt in with it, so it becomes a very, very soft brown or dark wax, and I'm just putting that around the edges. And because I've got a small artist brush, it just gives me a lot of control where I put that. The Easy Peasy wax will then dry with the dirt in there, and it will harden, and not only will it protect the dirt, but it will protect anything underneath it as well. I often get asked what the difference is between waxes and Dixie Dirt, and honestly they just offer a slightly different look. I think the Dixie Dirts are a little bit softer, and also the Dixie Dirts are a little bit easier to control. Like here you can see that I'm using an artist brush with it, and I'm being very, very careful where I apply them, whereas the waxes I would use perhaps for a larger surface area. So like here for example, I'm using white wax in the middle because white wax is also fantastic for aging and muting colours. Okay, and here's the finished look. I really hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. Let me know in the comments what you thought to this, whether or not you like this kind of look, or I don't know, maybe you want to give it a go someday. I personally love these oldie worldy looks, and they're one of my favourites to work on. But thank you so much for watching, and have a lovely day and happy painting. Bye bye.